Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be looking at the pulse cannon. After about 3 hours of ranking up on the Xbox One, this beauty of a rifle became available for me to use and just about won me over after the first kill. It's got plenty of attributes to it for us to discuss and compare, both positive and negative, and whether you use it will probably depend entirely on how you like to play, or which kind of mode that you're playing. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, how do you unlock this thing? Well, originally during testing builds of the game, this weapon was a primary blaster, not a star card, but since then the weapon has been tweaked and perhaps you could argue has been given a little bit of a downgrade. To have access to the card, you need to reach rank 5 in multiplayer and have 1,700 credits to buy it. Once you have the card unlocked, it can be placed in the left or right hand slot in your hand, and once you fired it, it has a cooldown of 18 seconds. If you're becoming a master of the game or you really like the pulse cannon, you can upgrade the weapon back in the star card menu at a cost of 7,000 credits. This makes the weapon more powerful and gives an on-screen card a black background, which signifies your dedication to the weapon. But what's it like to use? Well, as you'd expect, it is very, very powerful, but the power it puts out is dependent on the amount of time that you charge the weapon for. You can scope in, which brings up a nice green screen, pick out a target, and then hold down the fire button. A small quadrant then appears in the center of the scope, which fills up further the longer that you hold down that fire button. Line up your target and fire when ready. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, you're wrong. It's more complicated than that, and it can be rather difficult to use this thing in certain situations. As I mentioned, you do have to charge up this weapon, and you're likely going to do this once you've lined up your target. But 9 times out of 10, as soon as you line up that target and start to charge up the cannon, the player is going to move. No problem, you can just trace them and try and hit them anyway. Bad move. As soon as you move your feet, this thing becomes much more inaccurate. The key to keeping the cannon under control is to scope in where players are, charge it up to full, and then use the 4 to 5 seconds of time to line up the target, and then fire. If you don't fire the weapon, it will auto-fire after about 5 seconds, and you'll have no control over where this goes. It wastes the card, and then you need to wait for 18 seconds to pass before you can use it again. And on top of this, if you don't charge it up enough, you're not going to be dropping players. So if you were planning on using this thing like some bunny hopping rebel in the middle of the Battle of Hoth, then you better think again. The pulse cannon requires a bit more patience and planning to use it. Acquire your target, charge it up, stand still, and then fire. And how does it stack up against the rest of the star cards you can unlock? Well, it's a direct competitor to the cycler rifle, which is much more archaic, but we did get to use that in the beta, so a lot of people will already have a feeling for it. Rather than firing a laser pulse, the cycler rifle fires a solid projectile. It fires a bullet. This means it has one big advantage over the pulse cannon. It can penetrate energy protection like the personal, squad, and cannon shields. Although, as a disadvantage, you need to grind for a lot longer to get the cycler rifle. You need to be rank 28 and cough up 3,100 credits to get the thing. And by that point, you might have become used to the pulse cannon and want to carry on using that thing anyway. Against some of the other cards, the pulse cannon is definitely built for a longer range playstyle, meaning if you have this thing equipped, you might be left short at close range. And for that, something like the squad pistol would be much more effective, which fires 2 high-powered rounds in quick succession, which deals some big damage to the opponent standing in front of you. I always like to take a grenade into battle, just because it kind of feels like what I should be doing. It is a shooter after all. But I would like to have the jetpack. I haven't unlocked it yet. I'm just about to get to rank 13 and unlock it, with a couple of hours left on my Xbox One preview. So I will be taking the jetpack, and that doesn't leave a space for the pulse cannon. I could sacrifice my grenade and then have the jetpack to get myself out of sticky situations, but most of the time you're going to be using that pulse cannon when you're a lot further away from the target. Looking at the cannon as a whole, I think it's a little bit of a letdown. The fact that it isn't a primary standard blaster is quite frustrating, because of the 11 primaries that are on offer in this game, the only ones that really fit the role of a sharpshooter are the T21 or the T21B, both of which don't come with a scope. I can understand why this isn't a primary, as it's so powerful. If it didn't have the cooldown attached to it, people would just run riot with it. But with it being restricted to a star card, it leaves me no option during the round to take a full sniper rifle as a primary. Perhaps this is by design, because DICE might not want you camping the Ewok village on Endor all game. But that still frustrates me, because there's no real way for somebody like me who really likes sniper rifles and longer range combat to really do that as a primary thing during the game. I do like the way that the weapon operates as a whole though, punishing players who move when firing by shooting the laser off target. It gives the weapon a small skill curve to traverse, making players maybe feeling a little bit more accomplished when they do land that shot. Overall, I like the pulse cannon, but it feels like it's been deliberately stunted to somehow have it shoehorned into the game. If it were a primary blaster with a 3 to 4 second cooldown, a slower travel time on the pulse of light, and maybe a reduction in the bullet deviation when moving to make it more appealing, I think it would have been a perfect sniper rifle for the sharpshooters out there. But as it is right now, it's not too bad, but it's not that great either. If I'm brutally honest, once I unlock the cycler rifle, I'll be taking that thing into battle instead. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of the pulse cannon. And whilst you're down there as well, make sure you leave me a like. But until next time, my name is Westy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.